All right. You can go ahead and show us whatever you wanted to show first, and then we'll hop into like some further questions.
Sure. I was just going to start showing, let's see, just my website first, which is not up anymore. Oh, my Zoom took it over. Sorry. There we go. Just for the people that are on. So this is my website. This just is kind of, demo page, just showing the kind of projects that I've done and what I've done in the past. And I don't know why Zoom popped up, but there it goes. And so this is just some of the projects I've worked on over the years. It's a very wide range of stuff. So when I was talking about designing for interface design, which we usually call like, user interface experience and design, things like that. It's everything from, designing Facebook pages, which sounds weird to say because they're already designed, but what we're doing is telling a story through the user interface in the films or shows, anything to spaceships and, all of these types of things. So like the things that we design, it's a wide range of things that I'm designing. And sometimes it deals with, AI and artificial intelligence on how we actually build our applications and program things, or how I translate the stuff that you see in here into real world applications. Let's see. So I can go over like brief little things on what I've done on some of these projects so you can kind of get an understanding of what I've done, and then I can show you like an in-depth detail thing. So some of these projects in here, let's see, we can start with, well, some of these aren't even posted yet because these just came out. So sorry on those. So on Passengers, this was a film where, now this is a mixture like what Derek, I believe his name is, right?
Yes.
He was talking about when you're dealing with production, post-production, pre-production, all those types of things. These, in this particular shot in here, we had about 6 of these bays practical, which means they were actually there when we shot these. And these screens inside all these cryo units are all just iPad minis. And so what we do is we design and build applications. And so that's what you see in here. So we can control all this remotely when an actor is on set. So in this scene, we're off camera right here. As Chris Pratt walks around here and actually starts interacting with these consoles. We can control them remotely off camera. So we design the graphics, we write the programs, and we control them all on set practically. And then when we shoot it, if there's changes later, then we come back in post-production and then we actually alter them or just replace them completely. Or sometimes the screens themselves may not be an actual device. It might just be a blank piece of like acetate or black metal or something, because sometimes they have like weird shaped screens and stuff that we don't have now. And so this one was practical. This was like a 43-inch HD screen back here in the green, and this is a little iPad that actually, this iPad was driving what was happening in the back. And so this was all done practical in camera. This is showing some of the designs that we had done. This is showing some of like the concept art, with some of the elements in here. And like, this is where we're talking about having some of those weird bezeled edges and weird monitors and stuff. So this is actually one screen put in here, but rotated. And this is just a cutout, and we designed to fill in the design around those. There's an iPhone in this one. So there's a lot of different places that we design and implement things in sets. So what I'll do is I'll show you a quick demo that actually shows some of the stuff in context. Let me get to that right now.
That's incredible. I didn't know there were iPhones and tablets.
Most
I
people
didn't
don't,
really
yeah.
think about it. Like,
Yeah, I forgot to tell you guys, I
someone,
want to ruin it all for you before I start talking
no.
about this.
That's cool. I never thought about it because it's just there in the movies. But that's really interesting. Yeah.
So here's like a quick little demo. Let me see. Am I on? Sorry. I can build all this, but I don't know how to use Keynote. So give me a second. Here we go. So here's just a demo reel. So that was a bit showing it actually in action. You see it in the shows, in the TV shows, and the films and stuff like that. Now, I don't know how you guys want to go forward. Do you want to go through with like questions and we go through it together, like, and then we talk about the process more? Do you have any other specific things you want me to jump into? We can go into, because that's the other thing. I wasn't sure, knowing that this is AI as well as design, because it was cool that you said there's a bunch of people from both of them on here, so I can talk about either one, whatever you guys prefer, of what I'm doing and on what projects I'm doing.
I'm curious to learn the machine learning side of it, but is that outside of what you do, like what you just showed?
It's well, they go hand in hand. So like I got a call to come in to help consult with an agency about designing for some of their machine learning applications where, but because of Westworld. So it's that thing. They see something that they really like and they're like, well, who made this? Just call them. And a lot of the times what we do in the shows, it's all about telling a story. That's all it's really about. Obviously, yeah, it wants to look cool and things like that, but the goal is to tell a story. I've got like maybe 1 second when we cut to it to tell the audience something. And so what works is the visual storytelling and then bring that with AI and machine learning and things like that. So I'm working with a couple companies right now where what we're designing is systems that monitor all of their proprietary stuff. So where, you might want to, because the problem with like AI, machine learning, and big data and things like that is you have such a massive amount of it,
Hmm.
short of like just, okay, hire a bunch of analysts. They're going to then just go build models and then they're going to have a big meeting with a bunch of spreadsheets. And so like, here you go. And it's just Excel, over and over and over, which is important, for certain applications. But what I tend to do is come in and show how do you translate all that information into something that somebody can look at quickly, whether it's like a supervisor or an engineer or whatever the case may be, to know, oh, I have to be ready to fix or repair something, or I have to know when something's going wrong or we're doing well, or finding patterns. So what the machines will do, like the machine learning and AI can do, is it can detect based on, I mean, obviously every system's different, but, you know, designing a visual way, a visual representation so that somebody can look at that quickly and get an overall status of whatever it is that we're monitoring, whether it's fleets of vehicles for like, all over the world, or you're just looking at, like I just recently worked with Nike. So I worked with on developing a project for them for about where they're going to distribute and how all of their products, where and when and why, and being able to forecast models of, is this the right place for this type of shoe or those types of things. And so it can be a variety of different platforms that you can be designing this for. So it's always different, but the overall concept of like bringing information to decision is important. And though the machine learning and an AI sometimes will learn what you're doing and then based off of that, give you suggestions or recommendations, or you learn from that, or you see patterns that it may not see. So even though the machine is doing a lot of the work, sometimes you still need that human touch to kind of spot things that it wouldn't. But so
Right.
we design along for that as well.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because one of the things we talk about in AI is like the issues that we can run into with how much data how much data is being like used within the algorithm and like how it can be like so much sometimes where you
Yeah.
need the intervention from humans and then also like biases and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that you brought that up because that's basically where you come in is you basically come in at that point and then you're able to to present that to other people. So then is it like you look at all the data and then you put together what like a PowerPoint or like a video to show them or how do you
Well,
how do
yeah,
you do
it's different depending on the product, So like there's different ways. Like one of the projects I was pitching was for Formula One, where we're racing, and imagine, you could pull up your car in 3D and see every single thing that's happening in the car in real time, the wear on the tires, how hard you're taking turns. And so you have a very cool visual representation of it. Yes, you can pull up all the diagnostics and data and things like that. So that's like real-time data, ingestion and then translating into a visual thing that somebody's monitoring in real time. But then there's things where, like another project was, predictive maintenance, where we designed a thing where you're monitoring all of the trucks for a fleet of trucks for this company. And so you can pull it up at any time and see where they all are. But then also you can click on an individual truck or a fleet of trucks and it'll tell you things like, well, like based on the routes they've been doing, if you don't change the brake pads within, let's say a month on at least these vehicles, the point of this is to then go, well, what is that projected impact going to be? So like, oh, well, if I don't, and then it breaks down and I lose this vehicle for 24 hours, what is the impact going to be like on rerouting all the new schedules? What is the cost going to be on that because of this? So it's like predictively trying to prevent those types of things.
Mhm.
And so that might be something where you download when you request it, or it's just real time doing it. It just depends on the type of information that you're doing.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So I know you mentioned like you mentioned kind of quickly how like you'll only have a couple of seconds to like get a point across. Um, so what is like the process like that for you? Like because I never thought about that, you know, like a camera will pan over and it's only like
Yeah.
2 seconds, and then it's like we're intaking like whatever those 2 seconds are. And so I'm just wondering like what the process is like that for you. Because I know you mentioned you were like the creative director, right? So
Yeah.
then are you the one kind of thinking, are you putting together the idea of like you're the main person creating the image or whatever you want to show?
Yeah. So, well, it depends. So when I was at WB, mostly it was me kind of doing all of that. Then I brought some other people in to help me, and then we did it together. Right now, the structure it's different on each project as well. So like some projects, I might be very close with a production designer or a director, and they kind of only want to ask me, and that's just more of a personal thing. It's
Mm,
not that like the people that I have working with us can't do it. It's just it's just the way they do it. And so what would like here, I'll share an example of this one. So this is an example where this is on Westworld. So we've got, this is a tablet, which you saw in that demo, right? It's just a sheet of aluminum. That's it.
mhm,
So it's just a blank canvas. And so you get this, and then what you do, you come up with some ideas like, okay, well, we talked about this being a trifold. So this thing can fold into a dual screen, a single screen, or you can just, you know, rotate it depending on what angles you want it, and also have depth. Is it like, it's like parallax? If we're looking through this, you would see, when you look out the window of your car, mountains are moving slower, trees are faster, you get like that depth of depth of field, and so there's parallax. And so we wanted that in the tablets as well. So we come up with some ideas and designs based on what it is they're requesting, and then it comes down to basically the design tools that we're using, which is like Illustrator, Photoshop, After Effects, and Cinema. Those are like my go-tos. Doesn't mean you have to use those, but those are what I use. Programming wise, we write some of our own software. We use Unity 3D, Adobe Animate, and even old school Director, which I don't think anyone uses anymore. Um, and then what we do is it all starts from like pre-designs. We'll start conceptualizing designs. So we know what it has to do based on the scripts. And so once we run through those, like, okay, we have to design around those elements, but you want to kind of think ahead, like, well, what else could it do? So you kind of try to make this thing feel real. And so we'll go through some design phases, and we'll work back and forth with, well, in this instance, I did all this with the production designer. I come with some designs. Once we get the approved look, then I would start implementing those designs and doing little tests to show them what this could look like, showing like, oh, well, it could move in 3D space, or it can move, stay flat, depending on what we want to do. And obviously this won't be practical because it's not a real monitor. It's just a piece of aluminum.
mm,
And so what we do then, we know this is going to be a visual effects element, so we design around that as well. So this is just showing the different ways you can view things, satellite images, hosts and units or data, whatever you wanted to look at, just for samples. So we'll turn in things like this to get things approved. Once the design looks are all approved, if we have the time, this is a perfect example of like the process. So we take a script, and the coordinator, somebody would, or me or whoever, would read this, and then we find out the sections that have to do with us. He grabs his tablet, and we break down the beats, and this is the story that we have to tell.
mm,
And so in here we read these, and then now we have to figure out a way to visually tell that story. But I don't know how it's going to be shot. So what we do is I come up with a concept of, on the day, here's how we're going to, this is what I show this to the actor. And so this is what the tablet looks like. And this is just an example, like this isn't the right graphics at all, but I'm showing them about how the UI works, where things move, how you can rotate, how you can adjust things. And then this is to help the actor, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing, because they're going to be staring at a black tablet.
yeah.
And so then what I'll do is I'll take that to the next step, where this is a shot of the tablet on the day. And everything in Westworld is dusty and gross because it's always hot. And anyway, and so we'll take this, and then I mark it up. So as crude as you can see, there's some gaff tape. Like I'll mark it up, swipe up here for number 1, tap for number 2, and then all the other beats that we described. And so that's how we'll shoot it on the day. And so once it's shot, so here you can see here, this is the actual scene, and this is how we shot it. So this tablet is showing you, okay, this is where the actual markings are for Bernard's character to actually swipe and adjust. And you can do as many different ways. You can have nothing there and they can just practice the movements, or you can have it there. It's up to visual effects on what they want to do, because they're going to have to clean it, replace it, and fix things as well. So that's how it was shot. And then the next step would be, I usually tend to get in a post and I start to track his movements. Now that I have the cut, and like you said, you can see we have a whole story to tell, but I've only got one, like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, like 5 seconds here to tell a lot of information on what we're doing with this character, and then we're off. And so I'll track in the movements and just line it up, and then I'll start doing a preliminary design on it to show visual effects. You can still see the green tape and stuff. This is just to show editorial what this is going to look like, to see if it's telling the story. You know, we're changing his, basically we're making this guy a horrible person to a good guy, taking his hostility down, his, you know, self-preservation, and increasing, all of the other things, that make him a good person. And then from there it gets approved. Then we turn over the shots to visual effects, or I do the comps. It depends on the project. This one's another company did. So here's the final, which cut changed a little bit. We don't see the initial plug-in. We just see this one. Then here's the final shot.
Wow.
And so that's kind of like how that design process can go from start to finish. Is you break down the story, what we're doing, go to the script, and you go break all that down. And then, depending on the show, you either design the design language or it's already done for you if you're jumping on a later show or whatever like that. But so, and what's funny is like that type of design can also then turn into AI design. So like, let's say if I'm going into another company and they want me to design that actual program, like for some medical thing or something, then I have to basically implement the realistic versions of that. So there's things that you see in like that are more just for looks, and you don't have real functionality like you would on an actual device, because your finger's a specific size. You try to get as real as you can, but then there's some creative leeway you can kind of play on certain things to tell the story, because that's what it's about. It's not like the actual functionality like your iPhone. But when I get into the real world, when I'm designing for like AI and different things like that, it's practical. I mean, we've got to make this thing work. It's got to, you got to be functional, and and people be able to pick it up and just use it, intuitively. Not, oh, I got my phone. Like nobody wants to open up their iPhone and read a manual. Like I should be able to figure it out by playing with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's different design ways to go through it like that.
That's incredible. Just like seeing the whole, like everything that you have to do, you're talking to the people that you're working under, you're working on design, you're programming things, you're working with certain programs, then you're putting together a presentation, and then after that, like it's just like seeing how like everything that you do, I didn't know that it was so like complex, like the whole like it's really a whole process, and
Yeah.
you're not yet like you're not just, oh, you're not behind the scenes, like you're out there talking to the actors too and the
Yeah.
bosses, and you're communicating with them, and it's like that is absolutely incredible.
That's fine. Like, me, and you didn't know what I did. And so,
Yeah. Did it.
yeah, well, like on that note, actually, I have another one that we see. So then on what you said, like working with actors and things like that. So I know people talked about it being actors and actresses as well. So there's things where we design practical. That's kind of like what I specialize in too, is doing things in camera. And so, because obviously, when you're making a film or a show, you want as much in camera as you possibly can get.
Right.
So like a lot of people that watch the show think this map up here is fake. No, that's all done in camera. This 3D map up here is all in camera. These are in camera to a point, but we end up replacing them in post. And I'll show you what I mean. So like these consoles down here are the final looks like this, but we have built in 5 screens down here per bay, and then we run the graphics on those with Plex on top, and then we blend them or replace the entire console if we need to. But these are interactive on the day, so the actors and actresses can actually react and do things, because you get a better performance out of it.
Yeah.
The map you can see right here. I mean, this is me walking around checking it for projection. So this is a real in-camera map that's all 3D topographical projected in the set on the day. This took a ton of engineering by awesome guys in this company, where we can actually rotate this in real time in the sets and things like that. They did some really cool stuff. VFX designed the actual, I believe, the map and terrain and everything. And we had a company projecting on it, and then I would do graphics on top of that. And so when it comes to practical stuff, we have things like, it can be anything: elevator keypads, consoles, medical carts, this this is an iPhone, and this is something where basically it slides in, it's locked in, and I control this with my iPhone off camera. So when an actor walks up to it, they tap it, I'm actually triggering it, or we build an interactive app. And so like in this scene right here, I'll show you with Tessa, she walks up to this console, it's got an iPad and 3 screens in it, and she's interacting with it and doing things. This was all done live in camera. I'm standing, off to the side over here behind her, and I'm mimicking her movements because she's got to remember her lines. She's got a lot to do. She can't worry about, actually controlling a real computer. It's like when you talk to somebody on their phone or playing a video game, they're kind of half in, half out. So what in this scene, you can see I'm standing behind her and I trigger the face scanner right here. I'm triggering the actual cues on the console along with Copeland, a buddy of mine who was triggering the other consoles while I was doing the top part. So I'm triggering the 2 in the middle and he's triggering the outer ones. And so as she's typing on the keypad on the screen, I'm triggering it and actually typing for her, but she looks like she's typing. And so this is all done live in camera. So this we have to build, rig, install with set deck, and build all this so that we can actually trigger this on the day in camera and shoot it versus actually doing it in post-production.
Yeah.
So we do everything from pre-production, production, and post-production.
Wow. See, I didn't know that either, that there were instances where you were actually in real time doing things. I thought
Yeah.
everything was just post.
Yeah, no, like a lot of this stuff is all in camera as well. Yeah.
And then we have really quick in the chat.
Oh yeah.
So if you wanted to look, Alexa said she saw a cabin in the woods, and then she was wondering if we could see anything for that. But someone else did ask, I think this is Kim, what type of real projects have you designed? And
Real
Adisha,
projects, like real world stuff, not movies.
I'm guessing. And Adisha said, I can't wait to learn how to do this, by the way.
Yeah. So, well, that's the funny thing, right? Like I have a website for my film work, but I don't have a website for my real world stuff because all of that is so proprietary and protected that I can't share that because that's all built for a company for internally. Is like, that's the funny thing. Like I might as well just put a website that says I make cool stuff. I can't show it to you because that's all real world stuff that I can't. It's basically like the stuff for Nike. I mean, I can tell you kind of what I did, but I can't show anything.
Right.
As far as other companies, yeah, it's like I worked on a project for BMW for in-dash car stuff, for real world stuff. Where I worked with a company called BCG, and they basically consult with all the big top companies. I've done, like I did I helped consult and work with Survios, the game company for the Westworld VR game. And so that was interesting too, building something that's practical that people are going to use as well as interact with it and stuff like that at a different kind of level. I've done a lot of other projects, like I'm doing a project right now with the military, which I can't say anything about. So all the real world stuff, yeah, I can't show anything, unfortunately. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. What is your favorite thing to work on? Is it more like the design, or is it like the AI, or these like real world projects? Like, what is your
I
preferred?
kind of like them both because the film industry is a very fast pace and it's hard. It's very hard. Turnaround times, things like that. It's a completely different world than doing practical design because practical design, it's a whole layer. There's so many more people. Like me and like 5 people might do a full movie by ourselves, like just for our job that we have to do. But I might work with like 100 people on a real world project. You have your back end, front end developers. You've got so many people involved, and so there's like this hierarchy, and there's a process of design approvals, and it's got to go through committees and things like that. So it's much slower on the real world stuff, and the film stuff's much faster. But I have a lot more freedom in the film stuff, and you kind of explore and do things like you don't have to make this actually work. You just like, oh, it'd be cool if it looked like this. And then if and what I think the only negative is like I can design something really cool, but when I give it to a real developer or somebody that's actually program it, they hate me because I didn't make it easy, And so it's a toss up. I like them both. I like kind of like switching because it gives me a break from one that's chaos and one that's a little bit more organized.
Yeah, they each have their pros and their cons.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the cabin in the woods stuff, I think on my site, yeah, I got a couple of shots from that one. So this is cabin in the woods. What's funny about this one is, and this is all lower tech. You can tell here, there's all kind of like your, ambient, monochromatic screens, all like old CRTs, and it's meant to look like old tech that hasn't broken. You've got, don't fix it if it ain't broken. that was kind of the concept for the design in this. What's funny is this is Chris or Hemsworth, but this is way before he was Thor. It was funny. This came out after, but
Oh,
we did
wow.
this like way before he was Thor, and then I think MGM went under, and then they shelved it for a long time, and then they sold it after he was Thor. And I was like, oh, of course, right? So it makes it look better. But yeah, so this was an interesting one. It was all a lot more lower tech, lo-fi looking stuff, very kind of windowed looking elements and things like that. A lot of surveillance. So a lot of the surveillance we do on the day if we can. So we'll set up cameras and shoot all this stuff ahead of time, but a lot of the times we may not have the actors. So you might see some surveillance in a room, but one of these are green or black or whatever. So we fill it in later when we actually shoot the actors.
Wow. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm just kind of like interested too, because I know you were talking about like the whole process, like, and I'm sure there's like deadlines that you need to do, and it probably varies on the company or like whoever you're working for. But like, what does your typical workday look like then?
Well,
Or is there
right
not a
now,
typical workday?
well, if I say that, nobody's going to want to do this. But it varies. Like for me as a person, it's different because so I'm a father. I have 4 kids. 3 are autistic. So I have a very hectic schedule as far as like scheduling throughout the day and making sure that all that's covered as well. And so luckily I can work from home when I'm not on set. So that's a huge plus. It saves me a lot of time. So I can work from home. This is actually where I work in here. This is my wife's side of the office. This is mine over here. So I get to work from home, but sometimes I have to go to set or a location and be there for setup and shooting. But most of the time it's from home. But the typical day could start anywhere depending on the project. So if I'm on, sorry, I don't mute that. There we go. Usually when you're on a project, you shoot, it's a TV show or a film, it's anywhere from, a few months to even longer, like 6 months, depending on the project. And if you're on post, it's even longer. But during shooting, your schedule is a lot more hectic because you're up way early and then you usually shoot all the way through the nights. And then, that it goes up throughout the week. And so the hours are a lot harder when you're filming, but it's a short span versus like, the other projects. But every project's different depending on how involved I am in the project. Some of them are fairly easy, wake up and just do some stuff. And then, I have to start and stop a lot with the kids and going to school, and COVID made things harder, so if the kids are home, then we have to do homework and stuff. So I have the flexibility, which I feel more than blessed, is that I can actually start and stop when I can, when I need to. But there is times where you're gonna have to pull an all-nighter, because like they changed something on the set one day, or I'm working on a Marvel film right now and somebody got injured, and so now it's like we had to stop and then, well, let's just start shooting this now. And so it's like, oh, we weren't ready for that. So now you got to basically just churn for the next like 4 days to be ready for it. And so that's hectic. It's a lot more hectic in the film industry. As far as the real world stuff, like I said, it's a lot more organized. So it's a lot more of a 9 to 5. You still have your hard days, but it's a lot more structured and organized versus, films and TV shows.
Okay, awesome. Alexis wanted to know, sorry, one second. She wanted to know, how did you decide to get this job? So
I always knew I wanted to work on films, and I mean, my end game is to be producing my own content. That's what I'm working at now. But mine was, I started out in print design and motion graphics and, doing a bunch of stuff, but I always knew I wanted to get in the film industry. I turned in, I don't know, 100 resumes to places, but, some people just, you don't get anything back. But I wasn't going to stop, I just kept pushing and pushing. And then, because it all takes that one opportunity. And then this was one of those ones where I got a call. It's one of those things, like somebody knows somebody. And so my dad was playing in a band with a guy who works in the sound department at Warner Brothers, and he overheard the video department said they needed a guy. And so it was like, through all that, they called me. I went in, looked at all their stuff. Yes, network. I saw it pop up. Networking is very important, especially in the film industry. And so, because it always comes down to who do you know and who do you trust, because it's a very
right.
big thing. Like I need to be able to call somebody I know will get the job done. And so I went in and I did an interview. I showed them all my stuff, and they hired me to do a weekend on a film, do some graphics over a weekend. It was like, and then that was like my first taste was, I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? Like, we need this, and we need it by Monday. This is on a Friday. I was like, okay. And then I worked like 48 straight hours that weekend and rendering and just to get it done. And I got it all done and turned it all in. And then like I didn't hear anything for like 6 months. I turned it all in. I was like, I don't know. Did I do good? Did I not? But I just kept pushing. So I started doing a lot more motion graphics and design while I was working at my other job. And then I go to see the movie when it came out, and everything I did got cut from the movie. And I was like, oh, great. So, and then I got called back again, like 6 months, like after that first project with them. And then I came in and they're like, what can you do? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? And so I just showed them what I can do. And then they put me on a film to test me out. And I basically just, I guess I did good, because after that, I mean, I had a contract with them for a week, and that was my same contract for 13 years. So
Wow.
yeah, went there, did that, and then stayed. So
Awesome. That's it. That's it. And especially like just speaking about networking, that's one of the things that we like to push
yeah,
to, it's just to and it's hard sometimes you don't have the personality for it, but
it
is
does
there
make it
any
difficult.
advice that you would have to like how to network and how to do that in
It's,
in the way that you did
yeah,
it?
and it is a hard thing to navigate, especially, like I have a few employees that consider themselves like super introverts, like they don't want to talk, and that's fine. And I have some that are just super outgoing, they talk way too much. But and then and then some of them are, just right in the middle. And so, but like each personality is gonna kind of mix with those types of personalities, and that's just kind of how it is. But as far as the networking goes, one of the important things is be good at what you do and be reliable at what you do. Because one of the things that everybody remembers the most is whether or not you're going to do the job and do it right. I mean, I'll even hire somebody I don't really like because I know they're reliable and they're good at what they do.
Mhm.
So I don't care if we don't really get along, as long as they're good at what they do. And so I think that goes a long way in this industry, and in all industries really, because it's the same thing. If somebody recommends you, oh, hey, you won't come, I know somebody who can come work on your house. Well, do you trust that person? Because they're coming into my house to work on it. So, so it's like if you know that they're good at what they do. And so that was one of the things that kept me getting work, was I always got my projects done. I was accountable for my work, and I made sure that I showed up on time, got the work done. And yeah, there's times it's going to be really hard. You know what I mean? So you just got to push through those times, but obviously, you want to do it in a healthy way, which is what we're fighting for right now. So like the whole union's talking about going on strike right now. And that's because you know, we want to get our hours and our time back. So it's a hard thing in this industry. So like we want, because we can work when you're on a production, you'll work, say start on Monday, 6 a.m., start filming. It's a 12-hour usual shoot. And so you usually shoot from 6 to 6. Sometimes you go over. So let's say you shoot till 6 till, let's say like 7 or 8 p.m. Well, that means you can't start the next day until 8 a.m. because it's a 12-hour turnaround for the actors. So then, okay, well then we start Tuesday at 8 a.m. And then let's say we shoot till 12 midnight. That means we can't start Wednesday until 12 p.m. And then that goes up till Friday. You start at 5 p.m. and then you shoot until like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 on Saturday night. And then you've gone through that weekend, you wake up and it's Monday already.
Right.
So we're fighting a lot of those things because it is really hard on people, especially people with families and driving, and it's got to be safe, So I kind of detoured on that question. Sorry.
No, you're all good. You're fine. I'm gonna ask you a follow-up question on that, but Alexis wants to know if they can stay connected to you.
Sure. Yeah. And you guys can contact me through my site. So, I mean, if somebody just goes there and goes to contact, you can just send me a message.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. And just speaking of like, like you were talking about how you are running into issues and you guys want to go on strike, or even just you said that it can get kind of hectic. How do you balance your work and your personal life? And then what are some like mental health strategies or exercises that you kind of use, or just anything to like de-stress?
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be a different per person, type of thing. For me, I was trying to balance my life work where I had more family time, especially with having 3 kids that are autistic. I need to be home more. And so that's why I left WB, because I was driving from Palmdale. I live right over on the east side. So it's like I'm driving from Palmdale to Burbank every single day. And so after that, it was like I would then go to set from there, or then, so it was like I'd be putting in sometimes anywhere from like 18 to, like 16 to 20-hour days, depending on the projects. And so that was not healthy for my relationship with just my life, my wife, my family. And so I basically left to gain control of that. I mean, not everybody has that option to just kind of leave it and start a company. I mean, it took a lot of work to get through that. So during those times, what I ended up doing is just focusing on what really mattered. Trust me, it's easy to be in this industry and be like, cool, we just wrapped, let's go out and do this, let's party, let's do this. Like for me, it was like, I'm going home, like I have things to do. And then building up, one of the things that like you can do is like building up your reputation is what you are really good at doing, to where you can kind of pick and choose. And so we're like, I don't want to work on this project because I don't need to, and so building that freedom of being really good at what you do, to where people are after you for what you do, so that you can kind of pick and choose. It really kind of, you take control as far as what you want to do and what you want to spend your time on. But that does take some time to get to that level. And so what I would do is, while you're building your career, is focus on the things that really matter, so that you have that time later to then do those things. But as far as your mental health during those things, I mean, it's different for everybody. Like, we go to a church, kids go to youth camps, we do all kinds of stuff together. So that really is nice, just to unplug, get away from the computers, because it's so easy. We're always around them. And that was one of the big drawbacks too, is, now that we got the phones, that are basically computers in our pockets, it's like ping, 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 ping. It's always hitting you up. So it's like, it's good to just put the phone down, shut it off, and walk away. As easy as it sounds, it helps a lot, because we tend to just get caught up constantly staying involved, and like your 9 to 5 is over, yet it's 10, 7, 8, and 9 at night, and you're still dealing with emails and stuff. And I know we all do it, but it's like, it's good to just balance that better, just because most of the time it can wait. I mean, there's times, I can't, it's emergency or something, but most of the time it can wait. And that'll really help balance it out. It takes a lot of that stress off your shoulders.
Putting the phone on do not disturb and getting out of the house.
Yeah, or just chucking it, just throw it somewhere.
I have that issue for sure.
Yeah, definitely just making that time for yourself or your family or a couple or whatever situation you may be in. You know what I mean? It definitely helps.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. So Derek, or no, this is Kim. She said, what's the training process to enter this field? And are there any internships or entry-level jobs?
So I didn't go to school for exactly what I do. I didn't know this was a job. You know what I mean? It's funny, like I kind of fell into it, but I've always been really interested in like UI. I just like, when I watch a movie, I didn't know like that somebody made that. I'm like, oh, this is just some real computer that does that, or, naive. And just like, I think that that's something that exists, or it's just a visual effect. But I went to school I have a associates in graphic design. So I started in design. So a lot of schools offer design. And then I went for my bachelor's in visual communications, so that's communicating visually with design and things like that. And in that, they had classes where we can take animation, print, depending on what you wanted to do. I had started early, like doing like silk screening and print design, packaging design. I did a lot of that before I got into this, but I've always loved motion graphics. So what I did, if this helps some people, is that one of the things that's interesting is like when you go to school, you run through the classes with everybody else. But one of the things that helped me a lot was I would always do more after. So like, I didn't want my demo reel to be the same as everybody else's. So when I would watch a commercial I really liked, and I was like, well, that's awesome. How did they do that? And I would try and recreate it. And then it's funny, like you recreate those real life like projects, you put those on your reel, and people are like, oh, I didn't know you worked on that Apple commercial or whatever. You're like, oh, I didn't, but I could have. I fooled you. You know what I mean? And so it's like you build those real world projects, or you just push your portfolio pieces, and to be more than just the minimum. You know what I mean? And so any design classes, because you're going to be working on static images as well as animating those images. And so I have some designers who only do stills, like they just design UI elements and they design interfaces, but they don't animate. And that's fine too. So there's different ways you can work in what we do. Some of them are just programmers. Some of them just do like Illustrator, Photoshop work, and then some only do 3D, and then some do kind of everything. Some mostly animation or whatever. So depending on what part of it you are good at, you can pick and choose.
Okay. Wow. All right. So it's like it's basically like what I'm hearing is like, networking and like having a foundation, but it's mostly about having a foundation, like having sure that you are like a hard worker and you have all of these, building up your portfolio, like you said, making sure you have all these skills and something to
Yeah.
present. And then a lot of it is just learning how to network with people and talk to people.
Yeah, like recently, like I had an issue where we're doing Star Trek Picard, the show, and it's been a really hard show, and I needed some help. And it's one of those things where you think that it's easy to just go, oh, throw out something on LinkedIn or whatever, and you just
Yeah.
hire somebody. Like there's a bunch of people that need work, and it's like, yes, but when it comes down to it, like most of the people that I got a response from were just people who just didn't really try. Like you could tell, like they didn't try hard, or they don't, they're just like, just give it to me, like give me the job. And you go through their work, and it was hard. I ended up hiring a guy in London, so I got him working from in the UK right now, and to help or Canada for that one, and I just hired another guy in the UK. So the good thing about what you guys are all doing is it's tech based. So I mean, especially with COVID, to kind of show the example, we can all work from home, if we have that luxury. And so right now we have a team in Chicago, we have people in the UK, Canada, so we got them in LA as well. So it doesn't matter really where you are, as long as you got a computer, you can do the work. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. At this point, we're gonna open up the floor to questions.
Okay.
Um, and I'm gonna go ahead and start with Isla, if you're ready, if you have any questions.
Yeah. I was wondering what has been like your all-time favorite project to work on? Like in the history books, would never do it again, but loved it so much.
Even though it was hard, and I'd do it again. Well, I mean, it's a hard one. One of my favorite ones was Interstellar. That one was fun because it was everything we did. Like we didn't do any post on it. It was all done in camera. So like the spaceships, like all the cockpits, the robots, his chest, his screens. Like when you look outside the cockpit, it's all there in camera. The black hole, it's all projected outside. It was cool because it felt like filmmaking. It was all shot on film. Most of these projects are all digital now. And so I think that was one of my funnest experience because it felt like really like real filmmaking, like everything was planned, and we were in spaceships for like 3 months. And so like I was basically living in spaceships, and they're on gimbals, so like spaceships are flipping around and stuff. So it was fun, all around design, the people on the crew. It was awesome.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. And now, Carlos, if you want to ask a question, if you're ready. I know he has to put it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. If he's not ready, we can call on Disha if you have any questions that you want to ask.
I do have a question. Yeah, how long did it take you to learn different angles and stuff for like videos and the graphics and stuff? Like, did it take a long time to actually master it?
Oh, I'm still learning, seriously. Like, and then these programs get updated every few months, and now I got to learn some new thing. But you definitely learn, and I would say that's one of the things. Don't stop learning. So for me, every project I did, just like you will, you're going to learn something new. You're going to make mistakes. So don't be afraid to do that. First off, like, I think that was one of the things that I saw a lot of people get hold up on, is they're just too scared to make a mistake, or too scared to take a chance on a design. You know what I mean? Because like, oh yeah, I'll play it safe. And so one of the things I would suggest is just put the work in and do it, because when you learn and you do something wrong, you're like, oh, I know never to do that again. And you've learned from that. And trust me, I've done that. And then there's times where you're going to learn something new by trying something new. And so every project you finish, you're like, cool, I learned a whole bunch of new tools from that project that I'm going to use on the next one. Or you might even, there's been times where I designed a whole set and we ended up cutting the whole set from the film, but I did a lot of work on it. And then we go to another project, they're like, hey, we're going to make a set. And it was the exact same set. And I was like, oh, I got this, and so you basically repurpose all that and rebuild it into the new thing. But I learned so much that going forward, every time you get on a new project, it kind of helps chip away at that insecurity of like, can I do this? Because you've done it. And so just keep doing it, and you're going to keep learning from every single thing you do.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And we do have the question from Carlos now. He said, is there any advice you'd give to people coming into the industry?
Yeah, pretty much most of what I've been saying. The hard part is, yeah, it's one of those catch-22s. Like, you can't work on a film unless you are in the union, but you can't get in the union unless you work in the union. But it's, you know, it's one of the, so it's definitely about networking. One of the things I did when I was younger, like, they have different events, you know, you can go to, like, you can get on forums and stuff like that for people who are big into like what it is you want to do, and you meet those people. Yeah, it's online, but like a lot of those people have connections, and there's been plenty of times where I've never met somebody physically, but I've worked with them, or I've chatted with them on Twitter a bunch, but we do similar work. And he'd been doing it longer than I have. And then one day he hit me up, hey, I'm working on a project. Do you want to jump in? I was like, sure. And, you know, and so the networking is important. So especially in this industry. So one of the other things too, you can, I mean, nobody knows you exist but you. So, I mean, you got to get yourself out there. So I would say it's pretty cheap and easy now. I think you can put up a website, you know, just get your work out there. Just get out there so that people have something to find you on. Because I mean, nowadays, like, it's funny because like people, they ask me like, oh, have you worked with Chris? And they're like, they just IMDb me. And it's like, they didn't even go to my website, you know, but it's like, there's a presence somewhere. So, you know, I don't even run the IMDb side of it. They do, but
Yeah.
it's just having an online presence in some way. So I mean, just putting anything out there, even if you don't have your own website, just putting up like a Behance or, you know, or whatever those other, you know, free ones you can show your portfolios on, just getting your work out there. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's solid advice. All right, now we're going to ask Alexis if you have any questions.
I don't know. I feel like I asked a lot of questions, but I don't know. I'd like to see, like, I don't know, kind of like people. I don't know. I feel like you'd be good to give like a master class or something. So I'd like to see that. Like
Yeah.
for the community though, not like, you know. So
Well,
I don't know.
yeah, that's why I'm here right now. Because I mean, I've done some speeches, like some of the stuff I showed you, that was from a speech I did in London. And those are nice to do. And I, you know, I was humbled to do those things, but I like doing things more, you know, that I know I want to actually do something that has an impact. I don't want to do a talk where I'm like, hey, look at me, I'm awesome. Look what I do. I don't care about that. You know, like I was hoping that by the end of this, if one person goes, oh, I learned one new thing, or I have one better opportunity to now move forward to do something else, like, oh, that answered that one question I wasn't sure about. You know what I mean? Like that's why I would want to do it. So, I mean, I know I've been all over the place, so I hope this has been helping, but yeah.
No, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for carving time out of your day with work and just family just to be here and share. You weren't all over the place. I think we're all pretty much following along. Yeah, you explained everything very well. And there was a lot of stuff, like not even just about what you do, but just the other aspects of it that I didn't know about before. So thank you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we're gonna move on to Jalil, if you have any questions.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, my question was, if you could choose any movie to work on, what would it be?
Well, I definitely have a bucket list of movies that I want to do. I want to do a Star Wars, and so that's like on my list. And so I did just get a call for that, so that makes me happy. We'll see if it happens. You know, in this industry, you know, I don't say I'm doing a project till I'm actually doing it because it changes so fast. But definitely a Star Wars. I love Marvel, you know, obviously, you know, here you go. See, you're gonna see the nerd stuff coming out now. So I definitely like Marvel, you know, and some stuff. So I'm working on a couple right now, which is great. I was gonna do Akira, which was cool. That was with Taika from, but then it got shelved by WB, which sucked because I got on to do it. But anyway, but yeah, definitely. I see somebody post Avatar too. You know, I'd like to do some Avatar work. That'd be fun. I don't know. I don't know. I
Star
don't
Wars
have
is
like
pretty
a
cool. Is it?
film. Like, yeah, I don't have like that one film, but I think it's more just like stuff I grew up on. You know what I mean? Like I did just recently work on Transformers, Rise of the Beasts. I went and consulted on that one, and so that was another aspect. So a different type of work that I do. So that one, they called me. The art department called me. They wanted me to come in, and they had an idea that they wanted to write into the script for a different alternate type of part of the film, and it's funny, like they have to still get that approved and get the production and the budget and stuff put in there because they wanted to do that and add it to the film. And so they came to me, and it was about, because you think with Transformers, they're obviously aliens and they have their own language and tech and stuff like that. So they came to me with an idea that they wanted me to conceptualize for them, so that I would build the idea of, I can't get into details, but give the idea and show them what this could be visually. And then they take that to production and got it prepped and pitched it to them and got it approved. So now they're going to do that as part of the movie. So like, I don't have any graphics in the movie, but I helped work on the project. So that was a fun one. And I like that because, that's, grew up with Transformers, things like that. So anytime there's like some nostalgia right now, actually, you know what I want to do now, right now, because I have kids and stuff. So now I'm trying to get more into some of the younger stuff. So I'd love to get into some of the animated, which is different. Like I want to get into like doing what I do, like UIs and design, but for like animated films like Pixar and some of that stuff. I think that'd be really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Is
like it was
Star
fun to do
Wars
Space
the-
Jam. So like in Space Jam, it was fun because I got my kid's name in the movie. So like I built like this graphic and
I
stuff.
was
and
about to
had-
ask about
Yeah.
that.
And so like they're watching the movie and just Joe's face, she was like, that's me, that's my name. And she like lost it. You know what I mean? And it was fun. So it was cool for that kind of stuff. But yeah.
That's super cool. So for the Star Wars, were you talking about like the anime one that's like coming out?
No, it's for one of the Mandalorian spinoffs. So
Oh, okay,
yeah.
cool.
So we'll
Awesome.
see. But obviously.
Hopefully.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. So Jalissa said, right, Alexis, Chris has been dropping gems. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and light. And her question was, what is your most valuable life lessons? What are your most valuable life lessons?
Oh, let's see. I think like what I was talking about, it's one of those hard things is finding that life work balance. It really does make a huge impact on your life. You know, it's hard. I'm still doing it. I mean, especially now that I've left and started a company, like I'm learning so much now and things I didn't even plan, like hiring employees, and we've got 10 employees. And so it's like, that's a whole nother thing. Like it added a bunch of work, but I'm still trying to balance it. And so like, depending on your lifestyle, what it is that you want, just know that you've got to find a good balance. And I know I said it like 5 times, but it's hard. It really is. And so being able to know that now, like nobody talked to me about that when I was younger. And so it was like, when I heard younger, it's just, make a lot of money and do a lot of hard work. Doesn't matter what it costs, make money, do hard work, and so I went in with that mindset. And so I moved up, throughout my career doing that, working way too hard. But then it got to a point where it was like, at what price, and so it definitely changed once I took control back of my time, and I think it's something super important. And it's really hard as artists. A lot of people in here are talking about, doing art and design. One of the things you're gonna have to deal with is people going, oh, well, what does that cost? And like, you having to price your art sucks, because you might do something that, oh, it took you 10 minutes, but somebody might be willing to pay you a lot of money for that. Or you might do something that takes you like 14 hours and they don't want to pay you anything for it. And then you have to then value your art, which is hard. It's kind of subjective. But one of the things I would say you learn as you go is you want to value what you do, and value it on experience, not time, because like if I can design something in 10 minutes that looks like it took a week, it should cost you a week. And it's not because it only took me 15 minutes. It's because I spent the past 17, 18 years getting that to that level, and so it's hard because people are always looking to get things cheap. And so I would say value what you do. It matters, and be good at what you do. And those two kind of go hand in hand. And once you figure that out, balance it, make sure that you got a good work-life balance, because it'll make a big difference in how you feel mentally and physically and things like that.
That's an awesome point to bring up. I feel like this generation is kind of like, oh, I'm gonna like never sleep. And it's like, you know, you can sleep and still do what you need to do
Yeah.
and and it comes out great. So yeah, definitely that is a super important. And finding balance is really hard. I
It is.
struggle with it
I'm still
personally.
learning. So,
Yeah, it's a learning
yeah,
process.
it
You
is.
gotta learn what works for you, and then when other issues come in, you gotta learn to balance that. So it's like constant. But yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And then Derek, if you wanted to ask a question, if you had any questions you wanted to ask him.
Sure, and this was a great discussion. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad you guys got something out of that.
It brings me back to the trenches working in
Oh
Vietnam.
yeah.
We worked on X-Men Apocalypse, and there
Oh,
was this like really huge like scene where it was like the end of the world, and it's just like, man, it was just like a VFX boot camp working on that.
yeah, I
And
bet.
when you talk about the hours, it's like, man, it was like, just like you said, it went past 12-hour shifts sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And but yeah, it was real fun overall. What do you think, like for the students, what do you think is like the top three like soft skills that they would need to enter like an entry level job in the industry? And soft skills, I mean like communication, adaptability,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, I
know.
was gonna say communication. Actually, that was gonna be one of the first ones, and I think it's important because you're gonna have to learn how to communicate with all types of people, especially in design. You're gonna have people who tell you like, I have an idea, I don't know what it is, but I want to pay you to do it. And you're like, well, what do you want? Like, I don't know, And so and then you might have people that are very, very particular, where I mean, they're down to the pixel. I mean, like they know exactly what they want, and so it's a. I think what helped me, to be honest, was like, my kids have totally helped me. I mean, obviously you guys are young and stuff like that. Some may have kids, some may not, but having kids has definitely taught me how to be a better communicator and actually how to deal with all types of people. And it's going to be, it'll be crucial. Yeah, actually, good communication skills and understanding when read the room. I mean, there's times when you should or shouldn't say anything. There's times when you should, stand up for yourself. There's times when, you should speak up and put out your ideas and things like that. So definitely work on communication. And I know that's hard for some people. I would just say keep working on it. It comes as you get experience as well, because you're going to learn as you go. I would say another one would be time management. That's another one where, you want to know, you want to plan ahead properly. So if you're getting hired to do a project, don't sell yourself short and basically say, oh yeah, sure, that'll only take me like a day or two, and not knowing that it might take you a week. And that's something, again, you're going to learn as you go. You're going to learn how and how long things are going to be and how hard they're going to be as you go. So definitely balance out that, what is actually required based on what you're agreeing to do, and know what your capabilities are. Third, I would say your skills, actually, like honing in your skills. I mean, most of the time it's going to come down to people like, well, what can you do? Show me what you got. You know what I mean? And so be prepared for that. Because sometimes that's all it takes. Like when I got my opportunity, it was literally one of those. Like I actually got, they called me back at WB for the second time, they had called me back because they thought I did a type of software that I've never done before. And it sucked because I walked in for this, they called me back, I go in and they're like, oh yeah, I called you back because you do this. And right then and there, I was like, oh man, I don't do that, and I was like, that was, now they're going to not hire me. And so what I did is I told them, I was like, look, I don't know why you think I did that. And maybe you mixed me up with somebody else. I was like, I don't do that program or whatever, but I was like, here's what I can do. I showed him what I could do, and I showed him what I'm willing to do, and what my work, what I've done. And he literally goes, you know what, I have another project. We just lost a designer. I'll try you out on that. Had I not had that ready and had those abilities and those skills ready to go, I'd have just been passed on, just next, you know what I mean? And so, and then when I got that opportunity to do that project, I went in and I put in the work, and it was like, you're good, you're hired, but it's like, if you don't have that ready to go, you might miss an opportunity to land something big.
Got it. And speaking of skills, like I remember when I was at Fox and they'd ask for, they had a whole team of VFX artists, and sometimes if the VFX artists, they didn't know something, they'd go right on YouTube and figure it out like ASAP. And I worked on sets a lot where it's like different editors and different VFX artists. They didn't go to school. They didn't get like a degree for this. They learned through like YouTube. What's your view on like the students learning? Do you feel like that they could self-learn like on YouTube, or do you think
Oh yeah,
that, all right,
no,
cool.
I do it all the time too. I mean, that's the thing. Like the programs now are changing so much. I mean, usually you get a release, and then a year or two later you get another big stable release. Now it's just every month there's a new update. And so there's times where like recently actually because I do Cinema 4D a lot, and they just came out. I've been on like an older version for like 2 years, and I was like, I should finally upgrade. And so I upgraded to the new version, and they changed the whole UI. And so it's like nothing kind of humbles you back to when I have to go back to YouTube and listen to like a 13-year-old kid show me the new UI. And I'm sitting there like, okay, that's where the new buttons are. Okay, don't feel weird about going to do online tutorials, learning from online, because it's huge. I do it all the time. You might find, because there's things you're not going to learn because you didn't have to do them. And then you'll get on a project where you're like, oh, I have to do this now. Well, I've never done one of those before. So start looking it up. That's one of the things that I didn't talk about in here. I didn't, some of the other slides that I didn't show is, what do you call it? When you start, I'm drawing a blank on it. Basically, when I'm going to start a project, let's say if it's like I did like Deepwater Horizon, right? It's all about oil tanks, oil rigging, and stuff like that. I know nothing about oil and mining for oil in the ocean. So So the first thing I did is I just went online. I mean, I spent like 2 days just doing research, nonstop research, how oil rigs work, how do they mine? What does the software look like? Is there software for this? And so you have to learn that craft and the parts of that craft as you go. And so definitely pull from whatever you can, whatever, references and things like that. Like go look it up, like, because you're not going to know how to do everything. So don't ever feel like you going to do an online tutorial or buying some classes online or something is like a weird step. Like that was the funny thing. Like I learned about the film industry was when I work, it's actually funny, right? I work on the real world projects, and I'm working with people like, oh, I went to Ivy League schools, I went to Princeton, I went to this stuff. They're like, and then I go to the film industry, and this guy's like, I didn't finish high school, and it's like, so you have a huge mix of people in the film industry. You got people that never even finished school, people that went to school, and then people that have like super high degrees, fancy schools, whatever. And so, as long as that's the thing, like I was saying, is like, if you know how to do your job and you're good at it, it don't matter in the film industry. You just got to know somebody to get in. The other stuff, say they may look at certain things. So if you do want to go in this area, like more of the real world kind of design stuff, they kind of look more like you can't apply without a certain type of bachelor's or a certain type of thing. So figure those things out. Where do you want to go? And then plan for those pieces that you need to get into that position.
All right, cool. Wow, really solid answer. And a lot of our students are recent grads of high school. Some of them are currently in college. When you were at their age, did you face any like obstacles or challenges, and how were you able to overcome those obstacles?
Oh yeah, tons. I had a lot of issues growing up, family, things like that. I moved out when I was 16. I ended up just kind of bouncing around place to place to live on my own when I was 16. And then I couldn't afford college. So I signed up for the military. I was like, cool, I'll go to the military. I'll get some money. Then I can pay for college. Because I don't want to go to the military, but I need money for school. And so I lucked out where I ended up just, while I was doing that, I was going to go to the military. I ended up testing at a couple of design schools. They do these like tests and stuff. And one of them really liked what I was doing and what I can do. And then they offered me like a loan program where, hey, well, if you can't afford school, you just make payments and we'll figure out an arrangement and stuff. And I was like, okay, so going out and looking for, don't just assume you can't go out there, see what's available. They might have programs and options and things like that. And then I went to college, and then while I was in college, getting a job, bouncing around. So, obviously all that kind of just getting by and paying for school and all those kinds of things, definitely, I would say it's hard, I know that age, focus on it, because, I'd be in class, and sure enough, as soon as class would wrap, dudes going out, partying, hanging out. And I get it, have fun, but like, know your priorities too. Because like, I think out of my graduating class, only 4 of us have design jobs. Like most, and out of those people, they just went to go. Like I had people tell me, like, I'd ask them like, oh, what do you plan on doing? They're like, oh, I'm only here because I got a free ride. I had to pick a school, or I was going to get kicked out of my house. So like some people, like if you're there, be there is what I guess is what I mean by that. You know what I mean? So some of the trials you're going to experience is you're learning new stuff. I would definitely start to find a job doing anything, whether that's like an internship or something into the field that you want to do. I know nobody wants to work for free, but getting your foot in the door in any way you can, it definitely helps, because even just saying, oh, I interned at this place versus somebody who's never done the job at all, you already have a leg up on experience. So I worked doing like silk screen printing at companies. I was designing like shirts, t-shirts and things like that. I didn't want to do that, but it was a design job, so it's a stepping stone, even if it's like, I was even going to work at like a mortgage place doing like their flyers, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't sound fun, but it doesn't matter. I would gain experience. And then I ended up taking a job doing at a pen company where I was designing packaging, like pen design, instruction manuals for pens, it's like, I didn't think that was a thing, but all of those things helped me when I got later on in my career, where like I knew how to do things that most other people didn't do because they only focused on just like this one little thing. And they're like, I'm not going to take a job unless it's at this place, and it's like, no, take the jobs you can get that actually are pushing you creatively, because it'll help. Yeah. Oh, I think you're on mute, Derek. Sorry.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that with us. This is a lot of great information. I know Carmen still had a few more questions, so I'm
Sure.
gonna pass it back, but definitely thank you very much.
Yeah, so I know you were talking about just like your struggles and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering, like it seems like this job in particular is just really like it's one of those things where you got to like step out of your comfort zone and just kind of push forward for it.
Sometimes.
And so I'm just wondering personally, and maybe with your job, but just in general, like um have you always been kind of the personality that you have now, like just being able to communicate with people? And then if not, like what has been your favorite thing to look back on and be like, oh, I was that person and now I'm like this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I think one of the benefits I think I had in this industry is with the history of growing up, with things I went through and just my background. For me, high stress, high anxiety type situations, I'm fine in those, I used what I went through growing up in a positive way. Where like to where I'm on set with people that just can't handle that anxiety, that stress, because you could be on a set and it's like, oh, I want to change this, and you're like, okay, that means take your laptop out, change it right now. They're going to hold the camera while you're doing this, and everyone's waiting and watching you on a set, and you're the only person there, just trying to get this done and upload it and get it on the computer. Okay, good. Okay, roll. Like, and so it's very stressful. And for me, I think one of the advantages I had was taking the things I had experienced in my past that were very stressful and those types of situations, and just using those to stay calm and be cool in those types of environments, because it helped, and I watched a lot of people that couldn't do those things. And what was the last part of that question you said? Because you had said,
Yeah, like what was your favorite, like what is something that you can look back on and be like, oh, I was this way, but now I'm able to do this thing.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting at now, where that freedom of I'm my own boss.
Yeah.
And so and that is something that I'm very I don't think I could ever go back. I mean, to be honest, but I would never take for granted what I learned while working at Warner Brothers and those other companies, because it helped me get to where I'm at. And but knowing what I know now and taking that back of being my own boss is something I can never go back. Like, I don't think I could do a regular job like that again. But it does come with its own level, of different things that you've got to deal with. But yeah, just taking my time back.
Okay. And
Yeah.
a lot of people think that, you need to go to business school, and you just were able to start your own business. So I'm kind of wondering, how did you do that?
Yeah, it's terrifying. Like, because now you're mailing in documents to the IRS, to the government in the state of California. I'm like, I don't know if I did this right. So, I mean, and that was exactly what I told you guys earlier, where it's like, I've never done that before. And so that actually stressed me out more than being on those stressful sets. And so for me, it was like, okay, so I do the research. I started researching, what does it take? What kind of company do I want to form and why? And then once I do the research, I figured out, I think this is what I want to do. You fill out all the paperwork, you save up your money, whether depending on what you want to do, you turn all that in. And then there's times where like, I did it. And then they sent me something back. This is wrong. Oh, fix it, send it back. Well, that's it. I'm not in trouble. Like, cause I did something wrong, And so it's a learning process, and then, after a couple of years, it just becomes routine, you're just used to it. But I had to take that step. And it's weird because you get to this uncomfortable position of like, well, now I have this added stress of like, now I have to, do this or do this every year. I have to fill this out every year. I have to do this kind of stuff now to keep the company. And it's like, well, yeah, but once you get into that and you figure it out, it's so worth it. You know what I mean? Because now you've built something that you can control and it works better in your time and things like that. And you control, what you want to do, when and how much of it and what you make out of it,
It's stress, but it's good stress that is leading
Yeah.
to something
And then
that-
it just becomes normal because it's not stressful anymore because you understand it. But trust me, I didn't start a company for a long time only because I didn't know how.
Yeah.
I mean, I should have started it earlier, but it was because I didn't know how. But
You
then
just
it was
didn't
just like just doing it. And once I did it, I was like, I should have did this earlier. Most of the time we hype ourselves out. We're so worried, we get caught up in our head and we start thinking about ourselves, our own faults, what I don't know, and we psych ourselves out and we don't do it because we have that self-conscious, thing in us. But it's like, don't do that. I know it's easy to say, but it's like I'm still working with it. Trust me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. It's been really I'm just really impressed, and I know everyone else is, and it's just really incredible to hear you just talk about everything and just answer our questions honestly, and just I really appreciate it. I know we all really appreciate it. So thank you for your time.
Sure.
Yeah. And like he said, if you guys want to reach out to him, you can reach out to him through his website. At this point, I'm going to send you guys the guest speaker evaluation. But yeah, Chris, if you wanted to head out and go do something else, you can. Thank you.
I appreciate all you guys taking the time, and yeah, I mean, reach out to me if you have any other questions, and I wish you guys all the best of luck, for sure.
And Chris, really quick, are you based in LA or are you based in Lancaster?
I'm actually based in Palmdale. So yeah, I'm over like on 50th East, but like just at my home office. But we got designers, got another 2 designers in LA, and we have like 4 in Chicago. So we're all around. But yeah, I'm actually right around here.
And do you guys offer internships or anything of that matter also?
Yeah, I mean, we did. This is where it gets weird because we were just doing that and then COVID hit and then it kind of just flipped everything. For us in the industry, all production stopped. And so then it was like, okay, so we didn't have, much, we had to figure out plans to do that. So we figured out, got it all through all that. Now that we had to lay off some of the interns and some of the other people we had during COVID just because we couldn't, afford all that. Now that we're ramping back up and things are going better, it's like, great, we might be able to offer that. But like I said, we find out October 1st if we're going to go on strike in the union. So I don't, everything's up in the air right now. But yeah, I mean, because what's funny about that is I can get an email Tuesday that says stop, which means all filming, TV shows, everything you watch, everything stops Monday. So we'll see. But yeah, but hit me. Yeah, that's the thing. So what, I guess in response to that, what I tend to do is I keep a list of people that I know are designers. And so when I have projects, I reach out. Are you available? Same thing with interns. If people want to learn some stuff, I'm fine with it. I did a summer program with one of the kids from our church. He just came over and kind of hovered and watched me work on projects. I worked with him on stuff. It depends on the projects too, because some of them it's non-disclosure agreements and stuff. So I can't show certain projects to certain people. But it depends on the projects. But yeah, sometimes we can do internships.
Oh, perfect. Well, Chris, it's definitely been a pleasure. I'm going to send you a follow-up email. I really appreciate it.
For sure.
Cool. All right, you guys. Good stuff. All right. Have a good rest of your evening, Chris. Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right. You guys do the same.
All right, cool. And so right now we're going to send out the guest speaker eval. And if everyone could just take a minute before we hop off and fill it out. But really good stuff. Good questions. I think that this was a really great discussion overall. Wow, that's some incredible pieces that he worked on also, huh? Good stuff. All right, cool.
And then you want me to stop recording?
Yes.
All right.